Hello and welcome to our final special taped episode of Bettin N Boozin, episode number 48, talking about the $1 late pick six on Breeders' Cup Saturday. All the previews and all the analysis you will need for this Breeders' Cup Saturday right here with the Bettin N Boozin guys. Just going through again some few quick things. If you're brand new here and you aren't subscribed, or if you're coming back on the regular and you aren't subscribed, why not? You're already coming back anyway. Please go down below the video player and hit subscribe, and please smash that like button as well. It really helps us out, and it will push out this video into the YouTube algorithm to hopefully get more people onto the HHH Racing Podcast Network. And of course, just keep pushing the Breeders' Cup content here on the HHH Racing Podcast. We would really appreciate it. Not only all Bettin N Boozin episodes, but all HHH Racing Podcast episodes also get posted on audio, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchors, where you'll find those. Please rate, review, and subscribe over there. And of course, guys, if you are watching this before Wednesday at midnight, please go. There's still time to get our Breeders' Cup Power Picks tip sheet. If you guys go to hhhracingpodcast.com, and at the top, I'll bring up so you guys know what it looks like. It is right here. Here we go. So if you guys go to our website again, hhhracingpodcast.com, at the top here, there's a banner that says click here to subscribe. It'll take you right to it. It's only $20, guys. You see outfits getting $40, $50, $60, $75, even $100 for their Breeders' Cup packages. And we're only charging $20. And that includes full write-ups for every single Breeders' Cup race, full spot plays, grid plays, pick fives, everything that you need to be successful this Breeders' Cup. It is going to be on this tip sheet, and it's only $20, $10 per card. You guys are not going to want to miss out on all this content. Again, HHH Racing Podcast for those. And finally, of course, we have our normal power picks. Those go through Patreon, patreon.com/HHH Racing Podcast. Covers every single Saturday, covers 2 tracks for only $4 a weekend. You guys do not want to miss out on that for the entirety of the year. Patreon.com/HHH Racing Podcast. Again, guys, we're going to get right into it here as we have a full pick six to cover with all Breeders' Cup races and some very, very competitive Breeders' Cup races in here. This, of course, starts in race number 6. This is the Breeders' Cup Mile for $2 million. Of course, going a mile on the tight turns at Santa Anita's, and I bring up the Equibase right now. It is giving me a little bit of issue. Hold on. Give me 1 second here. Jump, and we're good. Okay, so it draws a full field of 14 going a mile. And again, I want to point out that these are really tight turns at Santa Anita. And one other thing I want to point out is that the rails will be down for this for Friday, both Friday and Saturday. So the inside ground will be more fresh, and it not necessarily indicates like somewhat speed bias on the turf by any means, but it could mean the inside tracks are where you want to be. So just something to keep in mind for you guys before you while looking at this Breeders' Cup card. Again, full field of 14. The morning line favorite is the great Japanese mare Songline on the outside at 5-2, followed by all the way to the outside, number 14, Master of the Seas for Buick and Appleby, and third choice is the number 6, Maj for Oisin Murphy and Bin Surur at 4-1. Guys, going to switch these picks right now, and as they pull it up right here, 2 of us are going with the number 10 Songline, but the other 2s are going separate ways. And Noah, I'm going to go to you first here. You actually have a horse that I don't have anywhere. Of course, the other guys have in second is the number 14 Master of the Seas. And as I bring up his PPs right now, what'd you like most about Master of the Seas?
Yeah, this race is wide open. As we're gonna see with our pick six, I went 8 deep, so it's wide open. But with Master of the Seas, super nice horse. Came over and ran at Woodbine and was ultra impressive in the Woodbine Mile. And then at Keeneland, he ran a really nice race. Just got caught by Up to the Mark, which
Yep.
I mean is nothing to sneeze at. Up to the Mark's going to be a real contender in the Turf Classic. I just feel like people are going to pay too much attention to the fact that he drew the 14. But I'm just thinking, the horse is good enough as long as Buick, gets him inside. Touching on what you appointed to, with the rails being down and the turf being good. As long as he can, get down there and save at least some ground, I think he's going to have a live shot.
Well, and the other thing is that Masters Seas, of course, is going to drop back. He needs to be nowhere near the lead, which, of course, when you're breaking from 14 with such a short run up as the a mile at Santa Anita, it really is just kind of a cluster to get position onto that first turn. If Masters Seas can drop in nicely, he's definitely dangerous enough to win a race like this. Patrick, you have Masters Seas second, but you have the number 11, Kalina, in first, which is a foreign invader coming from Long Shop, winning the Green One Prix de la Forêt, excuse me. Gosh, I cannot. My French is not very good, but beating a horse like Kinross is nothing to sneeze at either for Kalina.
Yeah, I was really impressed with that race last out. Just that turn of foot was incredible in a tough race against tough competition. So I like Kalina, but like Noah said, this is a tough spot.
It is a tough spot, of course, and Kalina obviously coming over here loves the firm ground at Chantilly in the grade 2 over there, winning by 2, and while being wide in that race. So Kalina is definitely one to keep in mind, and 6-1 is a nice price on a Euro coming over. But Charlie, we have Songline, and I'll talk about Songline first. I mean, there's really not much to say. If you watch any of her replays, you know exactly the type of mare Songline is. She's just extremely good. Probably the top mare, top miler in all of Japan. Last time out in the Michio Khan just lost to Elton Barrows, but that was going a mile and an eighth, and she just got caught that day. Coming back to the mile where she ran in the Victoria Mile, beat Sodashi, the White Wonder, of course. That's absolutely nothing to seize at. And then won the Yasuda Kinen really handily in that spot. So I'm really looking forward to playing Songline. And if I get anywhere near that 5-2, I'd be very interested in playing her on top. I just think she's extremely good and she's in as good a form as she ever can be. So if Songline can get the trip from the 10 hole, I'm really interested in Songline. Guys, we're going to go through pretty quick here underneath. No, I'll go back to you here. You're number 6, Maj in second, who we saw over in Keeneland in the QE2. It's going to be a little bit of a quick turnaround, being that it's the 3 weeks or so for Maj. But I mean, she ran really impressively, and she's pretty fast out of the gate.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing that I keyed on, the fact that she's able to get out of the gate quickly. I think also the cutback too. Coming back a little quick with that cutback from a mile and eighth to a mile. She should be a little more fit than maybe going the same distance. And like I touched on earlier, this race is wide open, and a horse that's going to, be one of the very few that's on the lead. Maybe she'll get lucky, just take them all the way.
I also think the post really helps a horse like Mausch, who's going to be looking to be forwardly placed. The 6-hole Mausch drew perfectly. Absolutely no issues there. Oisin Murphy jumps back on for the 3rd time in a row. Mausch could really sit a nice trip in this spot, although it is coming back pretty quick. Not to mention she worked a 7 furlong work back at Santa Anita on the 28th, which is 3 days ago, to where we're recording this on Halloween. But I think she's extremely interesting and could really sit a nice trip towards the front and could be really prominent coming for home. But all of us have the number 3, Casa Creed. Charlie, I'll throw it over to you here for Casa Creed. I mean, there's not much to say. Just the horse, $2.5 million earner. Just he's 7, but he's still in his best form in his career.
Yeah, I mean, look, Casa Creed's an incredible horse. I mean, you look at the 3 recent efforts, obviously losing to Big Invasion and Caravel, who we'll touch on later, is nothing to be embarrassed about. And then, as someone who made it very clear when we had our live show, I was all over Annapolis, and I get that Annapolis didn't get such a good trip. So everybody was still, like, is Casa Creed for real? Did Casa Creed just get the win because Annapolis had an awful trip? And then you look last time out at Saratoga, where Annapolis gets the exact trip that we had kind of expected Annapolis to get the last time, has 0 excuses, and Casa Creed still gets the job done. And now I feel like there's honestly no more questions to really have to ask. As you mentioned, an older horse, but ultra consistent. You see 99, 100, 102. So you know what you're going to get. Luis Saez knows this horse so well. you have to know Bill Mott was pointing towards the spot and feels good about Casa Creed. And it also is nice to see for a horse that, you typically associate with being towards a little more further back and then having to make a move. To see such a bullet workout in 46-2 shows that despite being an older horse and one that, again, you would normally say doesn't have much early speed compared to some of these other really fast horses, looks to be in peak condition and really ready to go at this spot. And you got to love the value at 8-1.
I mean, he just always runs his race. I mean, there's really nothing more to say about Casa Creed. He's usually mid-pack, always comes with his run. The miles shouldn't be any issue. It's just a matter of, is he good enough to beat horses that are coming over like Songline? But I don't think he's one to necessarily throw out completely just because, he's older. It's 8-1. Bill Mott just coming over to the West Coast for the first time in a few years. I just think there's going to be a lot of things that people are going to try and pin against this horse, but he's just ultra consistent, and I think he's easily worth at least in the money conversation, if not on the win end as well. Guys, we're going to move on here pretty quick. I'm going 10-6-3. Charlie's going 10-14-3. Noah's going 14-6-3, and Patrick's going 11-14-3. Guys, moving on to race number 7 here, and as I switch over the Equibase right now, it is the Breeders' Cup Distaff in this race, guys. This race is definitely one that's going to be very interesting on where we go. 11 horses draw in to this field. Morning line favorite is number 4, Idiomatic, and deservedly so for Florent Giroux and Brad Cox. Second choice is shared, but right to or outside Adair Manor for Baffert and Juan Hernandez, along with Clairiere for Rosario and Asmussen. And then search results bring third choice at 5-1 for Chad Browning. I'm bringing up the picks right now for race number 7, guys. And there's 3 people going with Idiomatic. However, not for me. Patrick, I'll go to you first here for Idiomatic. I mean, look, she's definitely the best horse in the race and the horse to beat for sure, just based on numbers alone. But there is one thing that's staring her in the face, and I'm sure you'll get to it right away.
Yeah, I'm going to assume that's the horse to the outside. And, the speed, the pace is,
correct. That's what I was alluding to.
It's going to be tough. But, I know Noah's going to hit on it. The fact that Idiomatic could sit off this pace and not have to kind of deal with a pace that's just not able to withstand. And that's what I think, could be the case. But that just this horse she's in great form, and I expect another big race out of her on Saturday.
I mean, Noah, I'll point it to you as well, but I mean, Brad has just pointed Idiomatic to every spot that's just been absolutely perfect for her, masterfully handled. The last work at Churchill just absolutely lights out. Just she could not be in better form, and as I'm sure you'll allude to, she has sat before.
Yeah, that's the scary part is she can sit, and like you said, she's just she's getting good at the right time, just simply put. We actually saw that race in person at Keeneland, and I saw her, and she looked unbelievable. So not everybody's gonna have this chance, but we're gonna be there, and if she looks like that, it's gonna be really hard to not bet her again.
Well, I mean, absolutely. Obviously, the pace scenario is going to be the one thing staring in your face. People are going to talk about it all week, so we're not going to hammer it here. But, I mean, look, the Delaware handicap, she sat. And, I mean, I know, it's classy additions, no slouch in herself, Morning Matcha, but still, I mean, and even back when she was in her maiden ranks and optional claiming, she was rating. So she has the opportunity if Florent Giroux and Brad Cox think that's her best way. Adair Manor obviously is straight go, not slow. Search results is absolutely not slow. What's randomized going to do? Randomized is absolutely on go. So there's a ton of pace in this race, which could set up for a horse that I have on top, which is Clairiere. I think just a lot of people are going to point to Clairiere where they think she's finally going to get the pace that she's always wanted and longing to run into. I mean, she's ultra consistent. The last one at the personal ensign, you can make, she was just super wide. You can make as much excuses as you want for the 74. I'm just going to cross a line through it, going through the slot being that wide. The Chuvie losing the Nest, who obviously didn't come back the best. She just absolutely, I mean, they went 50 50 to the half in a Saratoga grade 2. I mean, that's just no way you're going to run into where Clarier likes to, or the style that Clarier likes to run. And then the Ogden Phipps, which I think was an extremely good race for her. They still went pretty slow. I mean, they went 113 and 4 to the 3/4. That's still not fast at all in a race where it actually looks like there's going to be a really nice pace setup for Clarier. I'm going to be very interested in playing her on top in a race where she looks very poised to run a big one. Charlie, I'll throw it back to you. Search results you have in second, and then Pretty Mischievous, who I have in second, you have in third. Patrick does as well. Just go ahead, go talk through. What'd you like most about search results, though?
Yeah, so for search results, I kind of like the versatility. You know, I remember we touched on for our show that I was very high on search results in that spot. And I know it wasn't creative being the favorite, but I think a lot of people were kind of wondering, does search results still have it? Like in a field like that, there were no excuses to lose despite, you know, running some ultra consistent efforts. And what I really like to see from it was one of those races where you wondered, you know, search results isn't known for being the one who takes the lead, but with how weak the field was, kind of had to, and was still able to handle that adjustment, set the pace that search results, you know, wanted to, and then was able to win going away. Also like picking up IRAD again. You can see kind of earlier in the career, some solid figure efforts with IRAD aboard. And I like the versatility. I think with search results, I think IRAD can kind of just see how the pace works out. Since it probably will be a faster pace, search results will probably want to be stalking just off the leaders. And I think out of the real contenders, you know, it's kind of nice to have one that you don't have to worry about needing a specific pace, where if it is too slow, search results can just kind of press a little. If it does go a little faster, I think search results can be kind of the first one to get the jump in a stalking position. And I also trust Chad Brown. You know, he always shows up in the biggest moments. So I really think he'll have search results ready for a big effort. And I think you can get some good value. And then with Pretty Mischievous, kind of the same angle. You know, if you look at Pretty Mischievous's best efforts, obviously love getting Walsh and Gaffleone together. It's one of the strongest duos out there. And I think it's really clear for her that when there's a hot pace, Pretty Mischievous has incredible efforts. And even when there isn't, can still have respectable efforts. But as we've kind of already touched on, you know, with horses, like sure, Idiomatic could sit off, but, you know, you've got the 5 to the outside who's going to want to go. Randomized is going to have to go. So I certainly think this should at least be on paper. Hoosier Philly. This should be a contested pace, which again, I think should set up nicely for Pretty Mischievous and could kind of use a similar strategy to search results as another horse that could sit in that stalking role and take advantage of a good trip if the pace is there.
Not to mention, that's a horse I didn't even mention about the pace scenario was Hoosier Philly. I mean, what's she going to do from the rail? She's an absolute dead send as well. It's just, there's so many things pointing to an absolute fast pace in here. And I think Pretty Mischievous is extremely, is very, oh gosh, convincing in this spot. I cannot think of the word, but you know, 3-year-olds, there's always this talk. Same thing with Wet Paint in this spot where the pace does set up for a horse like Wet Paint, but are the 3-year-olds really good enough to win a spot against the older horses? This Acorn, I mean, was very good over Darth Vader in a pace where it wasn't that fast. Pretty Mischievous could get the job done. I just think underneath she's much more interesting on than on top. But the pace is there for her, and if she improves to one that, you know, this low high 90s that we haven't seen from her yet, I think she's extremely interesting. And I know one other guy that's going to talk about tomorrow from this recording, a little guy by the name of Paul Harron, who I think is going to be very interested in Pretty Mischievous as well. I'm going 9-3-4. Charlie's going 4-6-3. Noah's going 4-9-6, and Patrick is going 4-9-3. Guys, switching over to race number 8 in this race, guys. This race is unbelievable. I mentioned it on the pre-entry show. I mentioned it on the post-draw show as well. This Breeders' Cup Turf, guys, might be the best race on paper that I have seen, like in my life. And like people will say I'm dating myself just being young, but this race is unreal. And I will definitely be in the paddock at Santa Anita to watch these horses go by. The one thing to point out is that Get Smokin' was listed as a scratch today, so he will not run, but this will be a field of 12 now, with the morning line favorite being the number 9, Mustadaf, for James Crowley and John Gosden, which I was actually very surprised that he was favored over the number 5, Augusta Rodin, who's for Ryan Moore and Aiden O'Brien at 3-1. And then your third choice is actually the quick turnaround, but the massive King of Steel for Frankie Dettori at 4-1. And then fourth choice is the American runner Up to the Mark at 5-1. Switching over the picks right now, guys, for race number 8. And look at this. Between two, we are all going with the number 5, Augusta Rodin. And as I switch over, Noah, I'll let you talk first here, and then Patrick, I'll let you go after him. What are you going to say? Just these two, it's just Clash of the Titans almost in a race like this, but Augusta Rodin just looks to be the top 3-year-old in Europe and just continuously improves on those figures.
Yeah, I don't know if I've used this word to describe a horse that I like, but I think Augusta Rodin is absolutely fascinating. I love this horse. The horse is, so talented. Things that stood out to me, he loves fast ground.
That's what I was going to point
out. His 2 bad races are on soft. We've heard from Aidan O'Brien. He's been, super pleased with everything leading up to the race. He's got a quick turn of foot. And I'm kind of led to believe that this is his most likely winner from his barn. So if he's confident in the horse, and I'm confident in the horse.
If you haven't watched that show, I mentioned it in the last tape show that we put out, but Aidan O'Brien was here on the HHH Racing podcast, interviewed by Howard Kravitz and Paul Halloran. He was extremely high on Augusta Rodin. And, a little inconsistent, but as Noah pointed out, you can see on the good soft ground and on the soft ground in Newmarket, just not really a fan of that really dig in the turf. But you see every time he's been on more firmer surface, he's absolutely gotten the job done in both the Epsom Irish Derby and in the Irish Champion Stakes. If you take out the soft races, just a picture perfect European running line, Patrick, and I'm extremely interested in playing him on top, especially if somehow he gets anywhere near that 3-1.
Oh yeah, exactly right. And I'm not gonna, say anything, but I have a feeling this horse is going to be a big key in a lot of people's bets, especially in the competition, the BCBC. So the 5 is a stud, and I just want to hit on my you guys hit on everything that I need.
Yep, please.
So I'm just going to hit on the 13. Our U.S. horse, Warlike Goddess. Listen, this horse is going to have to run out of its skin to win this race. But the way the horse won the Turf Classic at Aqueduct Belmont at the Big A, I was really impressed that day. I think Billy Mott will have this horse ready to go. It's it's tough, but I'm going to be playing an exacta with the 5 Augusta Rodin and the 13 Warlike Goddess, because I think Warlike Goddess is going to run big on Saturday.
Look, the post, doesn't do her any favors by any means.
Correct.
But a mile and a half, the reason she's in this race and not in the Philly race is because Bill Mott always has thought that the extra 2 furlongs is a must for a Warlike Goddess, and she runs her best races at a mile and a half. So look, if she, like I said, after that big number, the 105, and she runs a massive one here, she could definitely be in the realm of possibility, especially for underneath play. And we all have the 5 guys, but there's a lot of tough customers in this field. I'll talk about Mustadaf. Winning the Juddmonte International over Nassau and Paddington is absolutely no slouch. Beating Luxembourg, another Aidan O'Brien running the Prince of Wales at Ascot. Just guys, there's absolutely no blemishes. In the Shima, but losing to Equinox, guys. Everything Mustadaf has done this year, except lose to Equinox, has been absolutely flawless. For me, it's just a clash of the Titans between Augusta Rodin and Mustadaf. But and then again, you even look deeper and you have King of Steel, which just ran on October 21st, but won the Champion Stakes at Ascot going 1.25 miles. He's massive, and he only lost to Augusta Rodin in the Champion Stakes by 1. King of Steel is absolutely, if he comes around, by the way, and wins this race, it might be one of the best training jobs I've ever seen, to take this horse, winning the Champion Stakes at Ascot, then 2 weeks later coming to win the Breeders' Cup Turf at Santa Anita with the travel in between would be absolutely unbelievable. But I wanted to mention King of Steel as well. And guys, Charlie, I'll throw it to you here. Up to the Mark. And he's absolutely no slouch. He's easily the best turf horse of the U.S. right now. Just won the Turf Mile after a decently long break, and now it looks really poised to run a big one. It's just a matter of, is it good enough to beat horses like the Euros that are coming over for this race?
Yeah, I think you kind of touched on it. It really feels like is it going to come down to the best of the Americans or the two, major titans, major players from overseas? And I am curious to kind of see how it turns out, because as you kind of touched on, I mean, Up to the Mark has just, even for a horse who was already running well, has just continued to improve. And, it really just feels like Irad and Pletcher have figured out Up to the Mark. Not that Up to the Mark struggled, but, you can see earlier on with Irad had lower figures, was losing races at short prices by big figures. And then all of a sudden, that switch sort of flipped in 2023. All of a sudden,
But
Up to the Mark started to figure it
there's
out.
one big thing that switched also in that regard. You could see it went from black to green on the screen there.
Yeah.
From dirt to turf. So
Yeah.
it's click.
Exactly. And so they figured out that the switch was needed and then completely rejuvenated this horse. And I think the thing I kind of like the most, and we've kind of talked about this before for these horses that can win, is can they handle winning dirty? Aside from just the ones where you'll see Up to the Mark sit off the pace, and the next thing you know, he wins by 3, 4, 5 lengths. And that's what I liked when I watched the race on the Turf Mile at Keeneland, was the fact that when Up to the Mark rallied, he didn't just end up blowing through the field. He had to work for it at the end and still gutted it out and was able to end up winning by a no. So I just feel like Up to the Mark is battle tested. You see, ran in 3 straight grade ones. The fact that off that layoff was able to still come back and gut out a strong performance, I think Up to the Mark could live up to the mark and get the job done in the spot, but we'll have to see if he can handle those Titans.
Even a punny joke in there for the boss man. I love it. But I mean, Up to the Mark, guys, easily the US's best chance to win this race. But if he's good enough, that's definitely one to be seen. But obviously we will see this Saturday. I'm going 5.98. Charlie's going 5.89. So is Noah also going 5.89, and Patrick is going 5.13. 9. Guys, switching over, guys, and this is the big one, guys. The Breeders' Cup Classic, of course, as we all know, not the last race this year. The turf sprint and the dirt sprint are both after this race, but of course, this is the one that everybody is looking forward to, and it drew an original field of 13, now down to at least 12 with Arcangelo. And his foot issue sidelining him and ultimately sidelining him from racing today. He was announced retired on today, which is Halloween, October 31st. So Zandon now draws the rail, of course, White Abarrio, but the morning line favorite is to the outside now in the number 12, Arabian Night for Pratt and Baffert. Then second choice is shared between the aforementioned White Abarrio for Irad and Rick Dutrow. And the number 8, the Japanese Invader, the Dubai World Cup winner, Ushba Tesoro at 4-1. And then after that, it gets a little bit farther out, but then you got a few shared at 10-1, or like Bright Future. But guys, this race is going to be absolutely fascinating. As I switch over the picks right now, you'll see 2 of us are going with a horse on top together, but is not who you think, I'm sure. 2 of you, Charlie and Patrick, are going White Abarrio on top. And I know one guy who's been waiting to talk about this race for the entire week, basically. Charlie, going to you first. White Abarrio, I mean, absolutely ran out of his skin in the Whitney. And you just look for something, a little bit of time off, but you could certainly do it again.
Yeah, I mean, you can see the horses working forwardly. Certainly happy to see Irad picking up the ride again, because as you kind of touched on, when White Abarrio, after, took that step up off the layoff to a 106 and then absolutely freaked with a 110, which, is a figure that's pretty much unheard of, and was, 10-1 that day. So it wasn't looking like the public really obviously expected this to happen. Ran against Zandon, who's in this race, ran against Cody's Wish, and just destroyed the field, sat off the pace, and then just bid them adieu and won by 6, basically won for fun, looking like it was a horse that didn't belong with the others, despite that it was the grade 1 Whitney with some of the best horses in the world, or at least specifically in the U.S. And, like you touched on, the horses coming a little bit off another short break, but is working forwardly. I really do believe a repeat performance is possible. I like the fact that White Abarrio has shown the ability to kind of just sit a little bit off the pace, go away. And, I always love The whitish gray horse. Love those light colored horses. I always make the joke that you should bet the grays. Again, this has been a horse where I was on the bandwagon all the way back to, when White Abarrio won the Florida Derby. Obviously didn't work out when I backed this horse in the Kentucky Derby, but a horse that I followed closely throughout. And, it was hard to that we kind of saw kind of really started to hit rock bottom when you see the horse, putting up a 51 and starting to wonder if this horse is finished. And then again, another one that got rejuvenated, still wasn't back to peak form. And then these last 3 races has really figured it out. And even after leaving Safi Joseph Jr., again, puts up that career effort. I think White Abarrio could run another monster race here.
Patrick, you also have the horse on top, and I'm sure you see it pretty much the same way.
Yeah. Draws the inside, workout pattern has, been interesting because it had a little bit of a foot issue. But I just think this horse is coming in cranked again. Rick Dutro's out. He's, I'm not going to, no, I won't say what I'm going to say, but he's out there to let people know that he's back. And I just was a big fan of White Abarrio in the Whitney. Ran well in the Met Mile. Actually had a little bit of excuse in that race, and I think will be cranked and ready to go again and has the tactical speed to win this race. So I'm hoping I get a better price than 4-1 though.
Yeah, I don't think you will, honestly, especially with Arcangelo going out. I think you might actually get less day of, but he's definitely gonna have to go from the inside. Net to the lead is not necessarily what I'm saying, but he's definitely gonna have to be at least a little bit forwardly placed, which is where since he's finally figured it out, they figured out he likes to do his best running near the lead. But White Abarrio is definitely interesting on the win. It is Noah and I both have him in third as well. Noah, I'll let you talk next. You have the morning line favorite in number 12, Arabian Night for Baffert and Pratt. Hasn't done anything wrong by any means. Won the Pacific Classic, going the 1.25 mile distance, but has had a little bit of time off in between. But the Bafferts are always working forwardly, working ready.
Yeah, I hear rumors around. There's a lot of Baffert hatred, California hatred in general. But I honestly think that this horse couldn't get a better setup. Yes, Saudi Crown's going to go to the lead. Arabian Night's going to go right with him. But really, I don't see those two really going all that fast. And Saudi Crown hasn't really proven it to me. Those last two have been over the slop. So I just think that, Arabian Night puts him away. Baffert's are notorious, for digging in that last, 1/8 of a mile, 1/4 of a mile. I think Pratt knows what to do. He's not going to get a speed duel with a horse that can't win on dry dirt. I just think he's going to do it that way. And he's muted.
Yeah, God,
dude, hey, quiet, all of you in the peanut gallery. West Coast bias is what I tried to say. That's gonna be my new nickname for you. I'm actually.
Should I put that in the lower bottom where my Twitter handle is?
Yeah, please do. But either way, look, Arabian Night's fascinating. I don't have him anywhere. The pace scenario, I get it. Like Saudi Crown is going to go to the lead. White Abarrio is not going to be slow. Just I think the post is a little bit against him, even though they have a long run up to the first turn. But it's just going to be, is he good enough to beat horses like White Abarrio? He's definitely going to have to continue to improve. But Arabian Night's shown it the entire way. So Arabian Night's definitely a win contender for sure. I have the number 8, the Dubai World Cup winner, Ushba Tesoro on top, and I actually love that the trip that this horse is going to get. He's a mid-pack type of horse. He likes to come from off the pace, and with the way the pace looks to be setting up, and it's Santa Anita, they're not going to go too slow. If this race is anywhere within the 45, 40, probably not 45, but 46 range, I think Ushba Tesoro is extremely fascinating. They had a little bit of gait issues, but these horses that are coming over from overseas, it's completely different for them. I think the gait was hanging a little bit lower than what he's been used to in both Japan and in Dubai. So it just freaked him out a little bit, but they schooled him again today. He looked absolutely amazing on the track today. So that does not worry me one bit really with Ushba Tesoro. I really just think he sits a really nice trip in this race, and he's extremely talented. that race in Dubai is good enough for a high 100s, maybe even a 110 buyer, just as White Abario had. So I think he fits right in with everybody. And if the trip is right, he's won 6 in a row. I especially if he's 4-1, which I think White Abario will get bet down. I think Ushba will be third choice. I really, really like Ushba Tesoro in this spot. I mean, just for all the reasons I just said. I just think that the Japanese are not they're coming to win this time. And you see it a lot of times in California, just like we saw at Del Mar with Marshall Lane and More Than Looks. The last time we saw the California Breeders' Cup, they came over to win. I think they're going to do it again with Ushba Tesoro. Guys, real quick here, Patrick, I'm going to throw it back to you for Saudi Crown. And then we're going to move on pretty quick here. But, I mean, and I'll let Charlie, since it's the big one, I'll let Charlie talk about the 2 as well. But to your point, Patrick, I think Saudi Crown's fascinating. Like, these last 2 races have been really good. It's just a matter of, the extra furlong, and is he good enough to keep up that late form?
Yeah, I kind of put Saudi Crown in the same mix as Idiomatic. Just the horse is in great form at the right time. Like Noah said about Idiomatic. And, it's just going to be pace dependent. If it gets too quick, this horse, I don't know if this horse is going to be able to keep up, but this horse should be on the lead. Has I think, the most speed out of the gate.
Yeah, I mean, and he'll definitely be on the lead because you have Arabian Night breaking all the way from the 12. The way I envision it, if White Abario is going to sit right behind, it's just going to be Saudi Crown and Arabian Night. But neither of those horses are slow, and both of them really, really want the lead. So it will be interesting to see how the pace scenario shakes out. But I really do think Saudi Crown is ultra talented and could hang on for a piece if they don't end up going very fast. Last horse that we're going to talk about is number 2, Zandon, who Charlie has in third. I also almost put this horse in third over Saudi Crown. I don't think he finally won a race last time in over a year and a half almost. So, Zandon's extremely interesting, Charlie, especially for a piece underneath.
Yeah, again, I mean, as I touched on earlier, whenever you have Chad Brown horses in these kind of races, you can't ignore them working solidly. And as you mentioned, finally ended the cold streak of finishing second in almost every race and just not getting the job entirely done. But look, I mean, lost to Repo Rocks, Cody's Wish, White Abario. It's not like Zandon's been running against weak competition. A bunch of grade 1s. I mean, almost every race this horse has been in is in a grade 1. Had high expectations even in the Kentucky Derby and was within a length of getting the win without, the major upset of Rich Strike. I think Zandon is a very interesting and talented horse that has sort of been able to, find that form again. And, as we've touched on earlier with the, concern of like Saudi Crown and Arabian Night for horses that are going to go, if there's any sort of pace meltdown, that could really help Zandon close in and get an upset win. And at the very least, I think pick up enough pieces to finish in the money. And I love the value at 12-1.
That would be the biggest FU to me. Is, I was talking about how Zandon could never win, finally gets through in the Woodward, and then comes through and just a pace meltdown and wins the Classic. That would just be the biggest up yours from Zandon. But look, he's fascinating, especially underneath if you're looking for a play for a deep closer that could pick up pieces late. But guys, it's the big one. I think it's a very, very fascinating race, even with the most likely post-time favorite of Arcangelo going out. I'm going 8-3-6. Charlie's going 3-8-2. Noah's going 12-3-8, and Patrick is going 3-12-6. Patrick, you want to say something before we move on?
Yeah, just quick. Would anybody have picked Arcangelo on top?
No.
It would have been close for me. It would have been close for me.
Would have been in my top 3 for sure.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Arcangelo and Ushba was the 2 horses I was going between. Because they were basically getting what's going to ultimately be the same trip. So I was in between deciding them, but that's a good point. But I don't know if he was, we can speculate the whole time, but I mean, he was vying for horse of the year in this spot. So, and now with him out, I'm not sure that that's going to be in the cards anymore. But I think honestly, speaking of that conversation, I think if Up to the Mark runs really well, I think he could be favorite for horse of the year if he runs well in the turf. But that's obviously a conversation for a different day. But I like the discussion, Patrick. Thanks for that. I appreciate it. So we're going to move on to race number 10, guys. The penultimate race of the dollar PICK6, which is the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. And this one, guys, this is a freaking race. But You'll see we're apparently all on the same page. The morning line favorite in this race is actually number 5 at 9-2. Living the Dream, who we saw come over to Keeneland and was absolutely lightning fast out of the gate, running a 20-4 opening quarter. Second choice is shared between 3 horses, so we'll go over Brad Sell, who won at Royal Ascot during that meet, Caravel, which is the defending champion, and Motorious on the outside for D'Amato at 5-1. Bringing up the picks right now. This would be an interesting question if we were doing this live, but we are all going with Motorious on top. But again, these are the first times that these guys are all seeing the picks. But yeah, we're all going with Motorious on top. I'll go to West Coast bias first. I mean, I'm gonna have so much fun with that.
Can't believe that's stuck.
It's going to stick. Absolutely. I'm going to make it stick. But look, he's been in absolutely perfect form. Those last 3 races are definitely good enough to win this race. Needs a little bit of pace, but I think he'll get it.
Yeah. You guys just hopped on the West Coast train, so don't give me that. But with Motorious, I just think there is a lot of speed in here. Starting with Living the Dream, who we've heard it 100 times, where he went sub 21 in the Woodford. No Balls for Larry Ravelli is super fast.
The best gelding name there is. No Balls.
Yeah. I just think it's really going to set up nice for him. He loves Santa Anita. 2 for 5 on the win end, 5 for 5 in the money. Loves going 5 furlongs. I was really impressed with that run in the Green Flash. Coming off a long layoff, going 5 furlongs and closing from 3+ lengths out of it on a Del Mar turf course that is typically very speed favoring. As time goes on and in the late part of the meet, D'Amato's going to have him ready to go. You get Pratt again. I just think he's going to sit a really nice trip.
I mean, I couldn't agree more with you. Obviously, we all have the horse on top. I like just another horse that's really peaking at the right time. And we keep talking about it, but baseball, you always want to get hot in November. I mean, do I even know baseball? Getting hot for October, my Christ. But I mean, you saw it this year with the Rangers and Diamondbacks, but that's obviously a different scenario. But look, 103 straight 100 buyers, looks to sit a really nice pace over a Santa Anita turf course that plays really fair. Going to flat 5, I think he has no problem with that at all. I'm very interested in Motorious on top. Charlie, I'll put it to you here. Anything you want to touch on Motorious, but then you have the defending champion, Caravel in second, who actually none of us have anywhere.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you guys kind of touched on it. Normally I'm against the California bias, but I think realistically here it actually plays to the strengths for Motorious. I always dislike these short races because I don't like speed horses. So I always love a horse that can still find a way to add the, close-in aspect into a race even this short. So, and then, yeah, as you touched on, interesting to describe baseball in November. As someone who doesn't watch baseball, I know it's October. Yeah, I certainly think for Motorious to, put up that 102, 101, and 103 and get Flavien Prat, who's arguably the best turf jockey in the world. I just think this all sets up very nicely for Motorious, and there should be enough pace to close into. Moving into Caravel, it's tough. This horse obviously was one of the best horses in the country, at least, from a performance standpoint in terms of in their horse's specialization, consistently just running these 5.5 furlong sprint races and finding ways to win over and over again. I understand that the horse was bet down, but I mean, you look when it all first started in the sprint, the first time this horse did it was at 40, almost 43-1. But it stuck with Tyler G, has continued to find a way to win, as obviously not always had the most convincing wins, but nonetheless, as someone who's against speed horses, typically this horse has found a way to, grind out some wins. I understand that the last 2 races, the horse hasn't been quite to form, but we've seen success with this horse before in the past. The works aren't anything crazy, but they aren't anything concerning either. And I trust Brad Cox that he'll have Caravel ready. And I certainly think Tyler Gaffalione knows this horse well enough that I still think Caravel could get the job done. I just don't know what kind of price you'll get.
And people are going to say these last 2 races haven't been. She just doesn't like the soft ground. I think returning to the firm at Santa Anita is exactly what she needs. But is she good enough to win in this race? I mean, that 102 in the Jaipur would certainly put her directly in contention. And again, close to a hot pace would be another question. Roses for Deborah is the horse I want to talk about, guys. And that last race at Parks was just an absolute bog. I mean, that's basically a line through it. She just does not like the soft turf. We'll get firm ground where she's run her best of a 99 and 102 in the Smart and Fancy. Look, she's definitely going to have to step up, but I think Roses for Deborah is very interesting at a very nice price of 12-1, especially for underneath. I just think she can sit, she can rate, she can close, she can do whatever's needed of her day of. Ever since switching Barnes to the Clement and switching to the turf, she's just been an absolutely different horse. Roses for Deborah picking up Irad again is very interesting for me at a long price of 12-1, guys. And real quick, I'm going to let, let's see, who else do I want to? No, I'll let you touch on Bradsell here, then we'll move on. Obviously, this horse won the King Stand at Ascot, and beating Highfield Princess, which is their 5 furlong straight. Obviously, this is the first time this horse is going to go around a bend. I want to ask you if that plays into your handicapping at all. But I mean, even these last 2 races, hasn't brought his best, but could definitely bring it back to that Ascot race.
Yeah, the turn is definitely going to be a concern. 5 furlongs with all this speed, they're going to be flying up front, and there's definitely a possibility that somebody could not take the turn, kind of float out a couple paths. But just talent wise, I think Bradsell is right up there with some of the few that we've already mentioned. You pointed out that King Stand. I mean, that 121 time form, if you want to, translate that to buyer figure, I mean, that's pretty much as good as it gets in this field. But just one, it'll be interesting to see where he sits pace wise, with all that speed again. Another concern, maybe he hasn't, not going into the race with maybe the best prep, running, finishing 7th, going 5 3/4. But that looked like a pretty decent field. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah. I mean, look, you're just betting on the return to form for Bradsell, but could definitely get in the money if he does. I'm going 10-9-1. Charlie's going 10-3-12. Noah's going 10-5-2. Patrick's going 10-9-5. Guys, real quick, switching over to the last race. This is the Breeders' Cup Sprint, and this is one I don't think we have to touch too much on. There's really 4 main contenders in this race. One could even be much above the rest. As I switch, we are all going with Elite Power in this race, which I don't think should be a shock to very many people, as that's the horse that a lot of people are going to key on. But we have a little bit of differing underneath. 3 of us have Gun Night. 3 of us have Speedboat Beach. 1 of us even has Nakatomi in there. There's just a lot. Oh, of course, Charlie's the one to have Nakatomi in there. But Dr. Scheibel is also under there for Patrick. There's just a lot of different ways you can go underneath, I think, in a race like this. Let's see, Charlie, I'll throw it to you first. You can talk about Elite Power. I mean, there's not much to talk about. The returning champion from the Breeders' Cup Sprint last year has just been in absolutely great form. Did lose to Gun Night in the forego, but it was a little bit of a slower pace and definitely looks to be a little bit heated up here.
Yeah, that's the exact angle I'm taking. I mean, again, Irad linking up with Bill Mott again. The horse is working forwardly, for one where the horse is usually used to, sitting a little bit off the pace, certainly seeing the minute flat, and then the 46-1 is the most recent workout shows Elite Power is in elite condition right now, looks ready to go and ready for this spot. And as you kind of touched on, this horse has been able to work through some slower paces while that's not what Elite Power wants in the past, and has been able to get the job done. But as you touched on, certainly in terms of the best figures and the best performance, prefers a hotter pace. And, when you're talking about a race with some of the most talented sprinters, in the country, I certainly think, with Speedboat Beach and the Chosen Vron, we also have Doc Shivel. I think there's plenty of different horses here in this spot that are all going to want to go. And I just think the pace sets up perfectly for Elite Power. And I think we should be getting used to this horse going right back on top. And I don't think it'll surprise anyone if it happens.
The one thing I want to mention on Elite Power here, guys, with the forego last time, I think he's much, much better at 6 furlongs than he is at 7. And I think Gun Night's Gun Night's better going 7 than he is going 6. So I think the distance played a pretty decent, gosh, I can never think of the word. But either way, I think Elite Power is much better going shorter at that 6 furlongs, where he can really put in that punch of a turn of foot that he has on the dirt, and could definitely get home in the Breeders' Cup Sprint. let's see, Patrick, I'll throw it to you to talk about Speedboat Beach. Just, I mean, extremely fast son of Bayern, working as fast as ever for Bob Baffert, excuse me. And second off the massive layoff that he has, looks primed for a really good run.
Yeah, it does. And, I was actually, the breakfast at the Breeders' Cup show they have going on FanDuel. I was listening to Baffert talk to one of the reporters, and, he pretty much just told us, try and scratch those turf races, because even though the horse is two for three on the turf, was trying to stay away from other horses in his barn. But I think this horse is going to be ready to go, and is going to be the speed of the speed. And if Elite Power somehow can't catch this horse, this could be a wire-to-wire victory for Baffert in this race.
I think that's very possible. And Speedboat Beach is definitely the fastest out of all of them. And if they can't catch him, yeah, I mean, if no one goes with him, they can't catch him. I think there's a very strong possibility, of a wire-to-wire job from Speedboat Beach. Definitely one thing to be afraid of, obviously, if you're an Elite Power fan. And then Noah, I'll go to you here for Gun Night, and then I'll give Charlie the final say. But I mean, like you said, he's absolutely done nothing wrong either. I mean, we always talk about these types of horses, but this race really, there's three really big contenders, even four if you include Dr. Scheibel, who I'll mention at the end. But I mean, what's Gun Night done wrong?
Yeah, I mean, Gun Night's been right there with Elite Power. Most of his, recent races. You go back to that Parks race in the dirt mile, just a weird entrance to me by Asmussen. I don't really know what to make of that race, so I'm kind of leaning towards tossing that.
I'll tell you what I think. When Echo Zulu, before she got injured, was they were trying to get Gun Night to go to the dirt mile and put Echo Zulu in this race. I think was the thing. But still, your point is taken that he's probably better sprinting.
Yeah, I think he's definitely better sprinting. The thing with you guys touched on Speedboat Beach. I mean, Speedboat Beach is going, and the only time that Gun Night was able to kind of turn the tides on Elite Power was when going 7, which we talked about. Elite Power is not better at 6 and 7, and then he got a pretty slow pace. So it'll be interesting to see where he sits. He's probably not going to be able to go with Speedboat Beach, but he's going to be right up there too, just stalking. Maybe he'll be able to get the jump on Elite Power and hopefully hold on.
Well, Gun Night, if you're a Gun Night fan, for sure, he definitely has the opportunity to sit. But if Gun Night doesn't go, I mean, there's a few horses to his inside that have a little bit of speed. But if Speedboat Beach just gets out there, I mean, that's the concern, right? Is if Speedboat Beach clears and he's really primed, I mean, that's your issue. But Gun Night is not slow by any means. I think Gun Night will go out to the lead with whether he's fast enough or not is the question. But Dr. Scheibel's also not slow, who I want to mention real quick. That last race in the Santa Anita Sprint Championship was very good, beating Speedboat Beach. And Speedboat Beach, let's not sugarcoat it. He had a decently easy lead that day. And Dr. Scheibel, was slow out of the gate, had some excuses, and still got the job done. So Dr. Scheibel is definitely not one to just completely toss out either. But Nakatomi, Charlie, I'll give you final say, and then we'll move on to our PICK6 ticket. Nakatomi, that last race in the Phoenix was very good, although losing to Hoist the Gold. Going to have to step up here to be in contention with the best sprinters in the country, but maybe an underneath play, especially at a nice price of 15-1.
Yeah, I love the value. And quickly to touch on what you're saying, I mean, you could legitimately argue, I'd say, other than maybe, 3, 4, and 5, I'd say just about every horse is a contender. The Chosen Vron went toe-to-toe with Dr. Shrivel, who obviously beat Speedboat Beach. So I feel like a lot of these horses like to go fast with each other, which is why I just don't see Speedboat Beach getting away. As you see, a lot of these California horses have constantly been running against each other and beating each other by a head, by a neck. So I just think you're going to have that kind of hotly contested pace between, obviously, the horses don't have the emotions of it, but, fierce rivals going back and forth at it. And again, I just think this could set up as a pace meltdown that helps Nakatomi at least get in the money. And, when you're giving me a horse with Wesley Ward training, with Luis Saez riding, where, if Nakatomi wants to be competitive, you're probably going to need a little more of an aggressive jockey to keep the horse close enough to be competitive. I'll take every bit of that 15-1 if you'll give it to me. I understand a little bit of a step forward is needed, but again, I could very well see a lot of these fast California horses taking each other out and wearing each other down, and Nakatomi just sneaks into the money, and all of a sudden you get a 15-1 horse in second or third that provides a lot of value underneath.
It's completely fair. Like I said, there's a lot of different ways you can go, and there's a lot of different contenders for this one for sure. I'm going 8-7-9. Charlie's going 8-9-1. Noah's going 8-9-7. Patrick's going 8-7-2. Guys, going over our pick 6 tickets. Again, thank you guys so much for watching our entire Breeders' Cup lineup. It's been an absolute pleasure to bring you this content, and good luck with all your bets on the Breeders' Cup. But Charlie, you're going to go for, or no, Charlie, you're not going first, because we got something special for Charlie prepared today. No, I'll go to you first here. $96 ticket. As he mentioned, going 8 deep in the first leg, which is the Breeders' Cup Mile. 2, 3, 6, 8, 10, 11, 13, 14, with 4, 6, 9, with 5, with 12, with 2, 5, 8, 10, with 8. Singling 3 horses, $96 ticket. I love the press up. Talk about your ticket, Noah.
Yeah, so in the first leg, I have absolutely no clue who's going to win. So I've got more than half the field. And then in the second leg, I've got Idiomatic. I've got Search Results, who just I believe she just won for the first time in a while, so maybe she can get back to her winning ways. And then I've got the 9 as well. I can't remember who that is.
Clariere,
yeah, who could definitely set a good trip in there. And then in the third leg, I've got Augusta Rodin, who I don't want to give too much about it, but that's my play of the weekend. And then the fourth leg, the Classic, I wanted to go 3 or 4 deep, but if I used somebody other than Arabian Night, I wanted to use others. I couldn't just use one with Arabian Night. So I'm gonna hope Arabian Night does what he's best at doing, going to the lead and holding on. In the second to last leg, I've got 2, 5, 8, 10, which is Bradsell, Living the Dream. I know the 10 is Motorious, and the 8 is, I think, a price that I threw in. Oh, that's an 8 number. That's Ace Out's Fables. Yeah, I threw him in just as a long shot for Aidan O'Brien, and then in the last race, I think Elite Power is the most likely winner. So yeah, $96. Let's do it.
I love it. Dollar pick 6, absolutely. 3 singles. You know how I feel about pressing up your opinions. Noah, good luck with your ticket. Patrick, you're going to go next, also with 3 singles, and also with 6 deep in the first leg. 2, 3, 6, 10, 11, 14, with 4, with 5, with 1, 3, 6, 8, 12, with 5, 9, 10, with 8, a $90 ticket. Patrick, talk about yours.
Yeah, so let's just hope Casa Creed wins the first leg at 15-1. I hope he gets bet, doesn't get bet like crazy. No, that race, Noah said it, wide open. I'm not going to try and get cute there. And then in the next 2, Idiomatic and Augusta Rodin, those 2 are just, I'm going to single them. And then in the Classic, I'm a big fan of White Barrio, but I'm going to spread just because I know that could get that could be a tough race. Just have no clue really. The 10th, 5, 9, and 10, my top 3 choices. I do really like Roses for Deborah. I think that horse is going to run big. And then in the last, I'm not going to get cute with Elite Power. I think Elite Power will run them all down, getting back to the shorter distance.
Yeah, I love it. Like I said, you're, again, pressing up your opinions. I always support that. So, Patrick, good luck with your ticket. Charlie, man. Then that's another 3 for you guys. With his $12 ticket, gave out last on the early pick 5 for Saturday.
I offered to make it slightly less, so it's a little closer to the budget. 1 second.
Oh, you see? So here's Charlie's original ticket. Just, I want to get this out there. $216 is what he was submitted into
the
here.
average, on the average, I'm still probably killing it. 216 plus 12. That's
Yep, you're
enough. I'm
238.
right around
You're
there.
Ohio
definitely
State math. Let's do it, bud. Come on.
that's
You got it.
That's outrageous. I'm not having that.
27. So 27 times 3 is 54. 81. 81 times 2 is 162. So
That's not terrible. I'm close enough. We'll take it.
$162 for Charlie, down from his $216 ticket. 310-14 with 346 with 589 with 38 with 310-12 with 8. $162 again. Charlie, talk about your ticket.
Yeah, so in the first leg, certainly, obviously, this is a very tough sequence coming from the person who was so confident in the one before. I made it for $12. I couldn't leave Casa Creed off the ticket and take my risk just because the horse has been ultra consistent, and I wouldn't put it past. I know a lot of people would say that's a big reach, but I know Patrick would agree with me as well. I think Casa Creed could still be live here. I think Songline and Master of the Seas are the main two contenders. I understand the Masters of the Seas didn't get a good gate, but I still think the horse is good enough to overcome it. And Songline, clearly looks the horse to be. Can't have that horse off my ticket. In race 7, Idiomatic seems the one that, again, is too tough to beat. But Search Results is a horse that I've advocated a lot before in the past, so I can't leave that horse out. And, I was going to try to actually just do 4 and 6 to get within the budget. But because we talked about from the pace perspective how well this could turn out for Pretty Mischievous, I'd be very upset with myself if I left off a good value play that fits my, pace scenario that I imagine happening. Then going into the 8th race, where I'm going with the 5, 8, 9. We already talked about the two Titans battling it out from Europe. And again, for Up to the Mark, clearly the best American horse for the, the long distance turf races. And I still think Up to the Mark could pull off the upset. So had to have all 3 of them in there. Race 9, again, didn't want to go against the Japanese horse that's been so good overseas, but White Abario is my horse. I wanted to single it, but ultimately, honestly, Kyle, especially from your analysis, just couldn't leave the 8 out there when you've talked about how strong the horse is. But I think White Abario is strong enough that it should come down to one of those 2. In the 10th race, with the sprint we talked about, can't disrespect the former champ. Caravel could figure it out. We're all over Motorius, who I think is legit. And I know I didn't talk much about ours, the 12 horse, but couldn't leave the horse out there. Another one that could close into this pace. And then taking my chance, with how over the budget I already am. I know I made it a little bit better, but had to be skinny at some point since that's what I take pride in. So singling Elite Power and just hoping from a pace perspective that it works out and IRAD can navigate that trip.
Again, it's not a $2,000 ticket, so I do appreciate that, Charlie. Good luck with your ticket as well. And this is my ticket to close out our Saturday late pick 6 show, guys. I'm going 3, 6, 10 with 3, 4, 9 with 5 with 3, 8 with 1, 5, 9, 10 with 7, 8. Guys, again, top 3 picks in the Breeders' Cup Mile, going Casa Creed, Mauj, and then Songline. I just think those 3 is all I'm going to need. I think Songline is easily the horse to beat. Casa Creed is always runs his race, and then Mauj getting the run over the Keeneland track, I think will really help her. I'm pretty sure. Yes, it's a her. I just want to make sure that I'm getting that right, but I think that'll really help her in the trip to the Breeders' Cup for Mauj. In the second race, I also went with my top 3 there. Pretty Mischievous is the horse Charlie talked about. I think really fits the mold of the race. Idiomatic, who's definitely the horse to beat, and then the number 9, Clairiere, who I think could really get finally the pace set up she's always been longing for. Race number 8, got to take a stand between Augusta Rodin and Mustadaf. I'm hammering Augusta Rodin, moving on. That's basically my play here. Breeders' Cup Classic going 2 deep, White Abario and Ushba Tesoro. I love Ushba Tesoro, but got to respect how good a form White Abario is in, even barring the missed workouts that he's had. I'm going to go 3, 8 there, including my top 3. I included Big Invasion there at 15-1, which I think is absolutely disrespectful to a horse like Big Invasion. Could run a really nice one. Living the Dream I have in there as well, just in case he improves off that race in the States. Roses for Deborah, another one to look for, and then Motorius. And then I included Speedboat Beach in there with Elite Power just in case that happens where he just gets away and wires the field for fun. So want to be alive in case Elite Power loses, because again, that's a crisp balloon up to the pick 6 ticket. But guys, that is going to end our late pick 6 show and Bettin N Boozin's coverage of the Breeders' Cup for 2023. It's been an absolutely great ride. We're appreciative of everyone that takes a look at these episodes. And like I said, we wouldn't be here without you guys. And of course, to the boss, thanks so much for letting us do these shows. greatly appreciate it. But for my co-hosts, Charlie Freeman, Noah Maher, and Patrick Hunsel, this has been your host, Kyle Roscoe, in episode number 48 of Bettin N Boozin, covering the late pick 6 at Breeders' Cup Saturday. Good luck and crush your bets this weekend, guys. Thanks a lot.